Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast. And today we have Jess, and she's currently working as an associate lecturer, and she's also one of the trainees for Psych. Today we're so lucky to have her to share some of her experience and some of the ups and downs and some of the things that she wants to share, and hopefully some advice for future trainee or anyone who wants to get into this industry. So to start off with, is there anything or tell us a little bit more about yourself, Jess?
Yeah, so obviously, I'm associate lecturer at HSU. I support the delivery of the exercise psychology module and the counselling skills that'll be after January. I also work at a local independent school, so I work with the sports scholars there, and I've designed and implemented a 9-part workshop series that goes across their academic year for year nines and tens, and then their lower sixth get one-to-ones with me, so they book in weekly across their lunchtime. So it's quite intense for me. So we do 20-minute sessions for each student. So I get 5 every Thursday. So that's sort of like the main things I'm doing at the moment. And then just sort of clients as they come. Yeah, I was an athlete myself, so it's quite interesting now being on the other side of it, having had that applied experience myself, seeing the difference that a sports psychologist could have made to my athletic career, and now being that person for an athlete is really rewarding, actually.
Can you tell us a little bit about your athletic careers?
Yeah, so from, oh God, I must have been like 12 or 13. I started athletics and it was just
Mm,
like something like really for fun, wasn't taking it seriously or anything. And then a coach was like, "Oh, you're really tall and we need a high jumper. So can you try out high jump for us?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, fine." And then it sort of snowballed from there. I competed for England when I was 17, just on like a junior squad. And yeah, I only left because of injury and recently had a hip surgery to correct it. But yeah, it was a good sort of 10 years in the sport, managed to come back through COVID and a difficult situation with a coach as well. So it was definitely a long journey with a lot of up and downs. So I feel like quite equipped to deal with a few different things that athletes can present with, which is quite nice to have that insider perspective so that you can sit there and be like, it's okay, like I know how you're feeling, just
mm,
rant about it, tell me everything and we'll unpick it from
mm.
there. Because I think that's what I would have needed, being that age, experiencing those same things. You just need someone who's got an outsider perspective to be like, you know what, it is fine. Just rant about it.
Do you think your athletic history and your experience, like when you were younger playing sport, has influenced your decision to become a sports psychologist?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't think about sports psychology like at all until I was about 15. So I was sort of going into like national level high jump, and people were sort of like making it aware to me that like the concept of like self-talk and imagery and believing in yourself, so like the really basic sports psychology concepts. But I went to an open day choosing my A levels, and one of the career paths for psychology was sports psychology, and I was like, okay, that's it, that's what I'm doing, because I have such a big interest in sport and it just made sense. And yeah, I didn't look back since. So thanks, 15-year-old me, for choosing my career.
That's quite early on to actually find out about it. I wasn't until doing my A levels and realizing you could combine sport with psychology.
Yeah, I think it was only because they had a display board of where their A-level students had gone that I sort of found out about it. Otherwise, it still would have been off my radar. I might not have even found out about it at all. It wasn't something that was mentioned actually on my A-level course.
So you
Can I
had no
ask?
experience. Oh, sorry. I was going to say you had
Oh
no
no, sorry.
experience with a psychologist or sports psychologist beforehand.
No, no, not at all. The only thing that I sort of like I'd had exposure of sports psychology to was people literally just being like, one of the things my coach used to say was don't leave your mark until you believe that you can do it. So you imagine yourself clearing it before you go and jump, which is sort of a bit of visualization, a bit of self-talk. So that's the only exposure to myself having sports psychology. But looking back, you sort of go, okay, if I had someone like a sports psychologist in that moment,
Mm.
what a massive difference it could have made to that situation, to me coping with that, to overcoming injury and the coaching issues that I had. It could have made a huge difference.
Oh yeah. Basically, what I want to ask you covered already. You didn't get exposed to sports psychology before, And that is kind of one of the reasons why you want to become a sports psych, because you feel like if you had it at that time, you would have become a different athlete. So a more relevant question. So during that time, how did the coach or the environment about mental health or psychology is like when you're young as an athlete, and how does that impact your decision to become a sports psych?
Yeah, so I think I was very lucky in the sense that
Mm,
I have very supportive parents, I had a very supportive coach. They were always in my corner. If something went
mhm,
wrong, they were like, okay, just tell us and we'll help you deal with it. You do see athletes who don't necessarily have that same access, and being exposed to it and seeing sort of performance anxiety, even in sort of 15-year-olds where you're next to them, and that choking element. There was a girl I grew up with who just couldn't clear the same bars that I was, even though she was developmentally in the same place as me. She just had a mental block around it. So you sort of see these things and then you get exposed to sports psychology and like, okay, that all makes perfect sense now. But yeah, I was very lucky in the sense that my network was very, very supportive. And if something angered me, if something upset me, I could express that. But you see it all the time that people don't have that same access, and how easy a sports psychologist would be to be that person for someone who's struggling.
yes. So I thought, Kieran, do you want to have any follow-up question before I ask the next one?
No, no, go ahead if you got one.
No, I was just thinking. So during this transition from a young athlete, teenager, and turn into to start a journey as a sports psych, how did you, or is there anything you learned from being an athlete to become, or your early career as a sports psych?
Yeah, I think resilience is like a big part of it.
Mhm,
Like things don't happen overnight. And I think that helps a lot when you're in your like early first few months and people are like, oh, I've got this experience and I've got this experience. And it's like, okay, no, like I didn't come into high jump as early as others. I took longer to get to that height, but then ended up, on the same level as them. And I think it's just remembering you're on your own path and to take each day as it comes. I think that's something that's really important. And that resilience
mhm,
element from being an athlete and going through my own challenges, I think, yeah, I think that helps a lot. Just understanding that things happen and it doesn't really matter. You can still have your own pathway and it'd be okay. So definitely resilience.
I
yeah,
think you
it's a
can
big thing.
take the resilience into our qualification as well because of how long it takes and
Yeah.
some hurdles that we have to overcome. So it is a big part for us too.
Yeah, absolutely.
To give an insight for like future trainees, can you share a little bit of your journey from like A level all the way to your bachelor and all the amazing stuff you're doing right now?
Yeah, yeah. So funnily enough, I nearly applied to uni for graphics, not
Mm,
psychology. And it wasn't until sort of like my A-level mocks came back that I was getting like A stars in psychology. And I was like, okay, hold on a second. Maybe this is actually where I'm better and I have more of an interest for. So I can't remember where I applied, but Loughborough I applied to, and I think it was Cardiff. Went and viewed Loughborough University, and I was like, okay, if I don't get into Loughborough, I'm not going to uni. Basically, I loved the campus so much. It just sort of like fit who I was at the time. Obviously, being an athlete as well, it just felt so nice. So, yeah, I went to Loughborough. I studied sport and exercise psychology straight away, and obviously you can do straight psych and then go into sports psychology, I believe. But I did sport and exercise psychology straight away. Got a 2-1,
mm.
annoyingly like 2% off of staying at Loughborough, which was my original plan. So I ended up applying to Portsmouth because it's only half an hour down the road from me, so I could drive in. So went to Portsmouth for my master's back to back and literally got 1% off a distinction. So I'm really good at just getting off the edge of these grade boundaries.
Oh,
It seems
so
to be
is
like my
this
special talent.
you know where to not get higher?
Exactly, exactly. So
You were saying you have to get at least a distinction to stay at Loughborough.
no, you had to get 65 and I got like
Okay.
63.5 or something. I don't know. It
Oh,
was something
so
really
close.
silly. Yeah. But anyway, Portsmouth ended up being like a really great
Mm,
uni for me. Made really good friends. The lecturers there were really supportive. And yeah, I think if I backed myself more, I probably would have done the prof doc, but I didn't believe in like my ability to do research at the time and like have that academic element. So I was like, no, okay. I think I'd prefer the applied side of it more straight away. So I was originally looking at BPS and cases, and then spoke to, I think it was like four trainees and then
Mhm.
different supervisors to sort of like work out which training route would be best suited for me and based on like experiences, what people recommended to do. And based on all of that, chose CASES SEPAR, and I'm doing 3-year route. So I think it's about 2 years, 2.5 years, something like that left to go, which is a long time.
Mhm.
It's like 7 years in total, obviously, to be qualified. So it definitely takes resilience, but I think it's so worth it. Like even now being what, 6 months in, having regular clients at the school, doing my workshops and seeing some private clients, and you see their progress, it's such a nice thing to see that you've made a real difference in someone's athletic career, and it's your knowledge that you've developed and have implemented effectively. It's just, yeah, I love it. I don't think could have done it any other way, even with what's happened, like not being able to stay at Loughborough and going to Portsmouth. I think
Mhm.
it's been like the perfect pathway for me to realize where I sort of fit in at the moment, and a PhD maybe in the future to fix my academic validation.
Yeah, why not?
It's never too late to go back to academics either.
Exactly, exactly.
Can you share a little bit of the process of doing cases? So, how did you find your supervisor and all the experience about it?
Yeah, so I actually think most unis, I don't know if it's changed now, but they sort of
Mhm.
push the BPS route more, at least Loughborough did. So I didn't really know about cases so much until Portsmouth did a lecture where one person from each of the three training routes, so BPS, KCs, and the Prof Doc, came in and discussed sort of the training route, their experiences, and things like that. That I became aware of cases, and that was sort of was then in my mind as, okay, maybe this is the route for me. So obviously spoke to different trainees, literally just asked them their own experiences, what they might have done differently. And then to find a supervisor, I think there's like a supervisor directory on the Casey's website. I literally just looked through that and emailed a bunch of people.
Yeah,
I
there's
think I
quite a few
emailed,
on there. I think it's like
yeah,
60 plus
there's
or something, so
quite a
there's
lot.
plenty of options.
Yeah, there's loads of options. I just sort of, I don't even think I looked that far down in the list. I just sort of chose some at the top that said that they were available and sent emails out. What helped me as well is I'm quite lucky to know Amanda, I think she goes Amanda Pinkney she was Southampton Women's, I'm not sure if she's still there or not. But I went for coffee with her and I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing. What advice can you give me? So she sort of gave me a more of a practical insight into becoming a sports psychologist, what sort of training hours might look like, and what you might need in a supervisor. So she was just like, you need to interview them as much as they're going to interview you to see how well you work together. And I think that stuck in my mind quite a
Mhm.
bit when I was looking for my supervisor, just so that, it's so important that you get along with them and can chat with them about everything, the positives and the negatives. So yeah, I also looked at everyone's websites as well before emailing them. So
Yeah.
yeah, emailed I think five and then met with three. And funny enough, the first person I met with ended up being my supervisor. No, second. I met one and I was like, oh, I'm not sure. You've just made me like question my whole plan of going into sports psychology just because they were quite brutal. And then I met my second one and who's my supervisor now. And yeah, he was great. This is what I might be able to support you with if he's got like too many clients, he sends them over to us kind of thing. Yeah, it was such a relaxing conversation, I think, that sort of, yeah, the day before having that brutal conversation to then being like, okay, no, this is fine, this is what I want to do, and just being reinforced by someone, it really highlighted the difference and the importance of having
Mhm.
a really good supervisor. And I think it makes such a difference in the training route if you've got a supervisor you can work with.
And it's worthwhile adding like supervisors, they have different rates and they offer different things, like different ways of
Yeah.
support. Sometimes they can offer you clients if they have too many, or it's like how accessible they are, like on group chats. I know I have group chat with the other supervisees. And so it's just being quite open and like it really does help at this stage as trainees that you can talk to one another about your experiences.
Yeah, it makes such a difference having access to other trainees as well. And I mean, even if someone's looking for a supervisor now, I would try and find a trainee and just email them and ask what they think because they're already ahead of you. They might have advice. But yeah, definitely ask loads of supervisors, find out how much they charge, what they offer. Yeah, I think the average I got told was about 1,500. But I'm not sure how many
A whole year.
people are charging now. Yeah, per year,
Mm.
1,500 per year. So I don't know. I saw a lot more than that. I think the highest one I saw was 2,000, but they offered quite a bit. Um, so I think it does vary. So it's just another thing to take into account when you're looking for a supervisor, what they offer and is it value for money based on what they offer, or are they charging a lot for sort of the standard, which is like I think it's a monthly meeting, bi-monthly group meeting, and then I have a WhatsApp group chat as well.
I think it's definitely good. You get your own support from your supervisor and then a group of trainee who are also very supportive. And on top of that, your supervisor can also offer you some client every now and then, and that is really good. As a trainee, how difficult for you to find clients or experience like, according to your experience?
I think it's hard to find individual clients. That's my experience at the moment. Finding private clients is hard. I haven't really had so many. I've sort of relied on the athletics club that I trained with and I sort of approached them. So I've worked with a few of their athletes. And then the school I work with, my supervisor was actually meant to attend some workshops but couldn't. And because we live about 25 minutes away from each other, he offered it to me. And I was like, yeah, okay, it's fine. So the first thing I did on my applied experience was workshop delivery, which was quite a challenge because you sort of go from being in a lecture and being told all of this information to now having to translate that, make it engaging, and still deliver the information. So my reflections from that first workshop are literally like, stop being a lecturer, start being a facilitator. So yeah, it was an interesting first experience. And then based on that, I approached the sports scholars at the same school, or the sports scholar like team directors, I guess. And I was like, this is what I can offer, and sent them like a plan. So there's a Word document where I've got like 9 workshops broken down. Yeah, sent them that and had 2 meetings. One was like a brief 15 minutes, and then we met again for 45 minutes and discussed it literally like A to Z, what it would look like, what the requirements are. And luckily, they're really on board. So I've actually delivered an additional workshop with them, and I'm delivering another extra talk in January as well. So yeah, I think it is hard, basically. But once you get foot in the door somewhere, it makes it a lot easier. So I find it quite easy now to get into the school and have different experiences. But finding a private client is very difficult. And I don't know if it's because like the perception is like, oh, you're a trainee, you're less experienced, and that kind of thing. But I don't know. It's hard on that front, but once you get something, it's so rewarding that you kind of forget about how difficult it was to actually get a client in the first place. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
You're
It's
definitely not
always
alone.
beneficial. Yeah, it's always beneficial, and it's easiest, I would say, to go back to who you know originally if you want the experience. So I've gone back to my sister's old football coach and like now working with his team, and a lot of it is voluntary as well. In the early days, you're still technically a sports psychologist, you just have that in training in brackets. So we're doing this experience to get the hours until we can call ourselves qualified, but you're still essentially doing the same work as what someone who is qualified.
Yeah, exactly. No, sorry. I think, yeah, the voluntary bit, it's annoying, but it's important because it kind of takes the pressure off of, I found anyway, especially doing my first voluntary bit, it takes the pressure off of getting it wrong on your first like experience and not needing to go, oh my God, they've just paid like XYZ for this session and I feel like I did it wrong. I feel like this wasn't right. So much as it's a bit annoying to not be paid in the first few months, first few years, I actually find it quite beneficial having had that experience because it does take the pressure off. You can experiment with your approach, with your techniques a little bit and just figure it out and not have, yeah, the financial pressure that you might put on yourself.
Speaking of technique and those kind of things, how did you find your own, or have you found your own philosophy yet? Like it's kind of a big topic in psychologist.
Yeah, it's a big debate in my group as well. I'm currently aligned with acceptance and commitment therapy. I found it the easiest to understand at master's level,
Mm,
and I've always kind of believed that if it's something I understand straight away, then it's kind of meant for me. If I have to spend ages trying to unpick something, then it doesn't quite align with the way I think and the way I feel. So ACT sort of naturally came to me, and I'm still aligned with ACT. I like the whole values, like abstract thinking, not direct control that some of the other approaches have. Yeah, ACT is my approach at the moment. It hasn't really developed from anywhere other than being exposed to it at master's level and just going, yeah, I like that. That's what we're rolling with. I am in the next year going to explore with more sort of like person-centered therapies as well. I don't have a specific one in mind yet, but we're just sort of like branching out a little bit based on some of like my client meetings where I like to put the onus on them to sort of like come to me
mhm.
and explain what they want, which is kind of the main premise of person-centered therapy. So yeah, ACT at the moment, maybe more person-centered next year, but I don't think there's any reason really behind sort of my decision on that. It just fit with who I feel I am, and I like building on our personal concept and using that in an intervention.
I guess
It's
you find a
definitely worthwhile.
direction, yeah, and you just keep developing upon it.
It's definitely helpful at this stage where you can have that
Mhm.
flexibility with your approach. You don't have to stick with one. You can definitely explore each one and see what one you most align to. But you do have to, some people are very rigid with their approach and be like, this is a way to go. But actually, you need to have your own chance to go and see what works for you.
Yeah, I think it's so important. Sorry, to explore and not be shoved in a box. And I think that's why, you're a trainee as well. You're not expected to just wake up one day and know, you're expected to learn and figure it out. And the approach is part of that. And I think it's becoming more accepted to be a little bit integrative anyway and sort of mix and match. So, yeah, I think eventually we'll see a lot more integrated approaches anyway, but trainees definitely explore, definitely experiment because you don't want to end up sort of committing yourself, say, CBT on day one, and then by the time you finish, you're like, I don't think I like CBT at all, and you've kind of run out of time to experiment and explore in the safe way. Well, not safe, but in a more expected way. So definitely explore, definitely figure it out as you go. I think that's the best way to do it. Learn on the job.
And on CASES SEPAR, we have the midpoint where, I mean, the initial submission and midpoint, you do have to talk about your philosophy and how it's evolved. So if you're
Yeah,
stuck with one philosophy, which is fine, but they do encourage that.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's actually, I find the hardest part of CPAR at the moment because you do want to explore, but equally, it still aligns almost to one way based on your own values and perception of sports psychology. So, yeah, that's my least favorite part of CPAR is professional philosophy.
You have
I
to
would
But it's
say
so
find
also,
important, so you can't
justification.
avoid
Yeah.
it.
yeah, and also the amount of reflections.
Yeah, you can spend all day reflecting if you were, you know, really on it. But if I think if you find your way to reflect, it's not too bad, but you definitely need to be organized. And if you've done something, either like make notes so that you can reflect on it properly the next day or just get on it straight away. If you let them build up, it's going to be a lot to catch up on. And
Yeah.
I learned that the hard way. So,
My midpoint's in May, I think, so I'm already thinking in the back of my head I need to finish some of the reflections. But the
yeah.
the good thing is, they're not you have so many different like structures of to doing a reflection. You can do them in a voice note, you can do them in jotting notes, you can
Mhm.
different formats. So
Yeah, I've
you
done
do
mind maps for some of them as well, actually. I just sort of, I think one of them was it was related to my professional philosophy after one of the core workshops. And I just sort of like, not very artistically, I will admit, drew me at the center and then just like branched off based on like my own sort of values and perceptions of what sports psychology should be, and then where, based on that, I think my professional philosophy aligns at the moment, being sort of 9 months in now. So definitely find a way. And yeah, they don't all have to be a formal essay kind of reflection. Mine's mine. I've got some mind maps. I think I've got one voice note at the moment. One of them's like a really like basic journal article that I've scribbled on my iPad and just made sure it was, tell readable and just uploaded that as well. So yeah, and I think it's so great of CPAR to, I think there's like 5 or 6 different templates that you can choose from. And that was really helpful because it's quite daunting to start with, to go from nothing to reflect on your first experience. You'd be there all day typing about it if there wasn't some sort of structure, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's talk about something happier. Can you share one really memorable experience as a trainee so far?
Yeah, I think it was my 7th workshop that I delivered, so quite early on this year. And I'd really worked hard, like the sessions beforehand, to make it more interactive, make it more engaging, so that I wasn't just lecturing these poor kids. And the session beforehand, we worked on some sort of like, it was like an act lens on some of the psychological skills. And one of the students came to me the next workshop and he goes, Jess, do you know what? I tried that skill last week and it made such a difference to my rugby game over the weekend. I just engaged like this and everything went smoothly. And that was the first time that I sat back and was like, wow, do you know what? I can make a real difference with this work, and this is only the beginning. And if that's how it is when I'm still learning, how is it going to be when, you've got more experience, you've got the qualification under your belt, and you are more confident with everything that you're doing. So, yeah, I think my favorite memories are when you have clients come back to you with like a really positive experience of a difference that you've made using the skills that, you've given them. I think it's just so rewarding as well. And you can see it on their face, like how much of a difference it's made to them. So
I'm
that's
s-
still my top memory, I think.
I'm so happy to hear that, and so happy for you as well. Because
Thank
for
you.
us as a sports psych, sometimes we just lack of confidence. We cannot see the impact straight
Yeah.
away. Sometimes the impact come in a month time, or they won't even tell you. Compared to some other industry, they have done something, they can see it straight away. But for us, this is how I struggle with myself sometimes with the confidence.
I think confidence is
Yeah.
such a big thing in it as well. Like, and you can talk about confidence to your clients, and yet you're not confident at the same
Yeah.
time. And it's quite ironic at times, I think. But I think confidence is such a big part of it, and you really do have to back yourself and just believe that, you have studied for at least 4 years at uni. Why can't you do that, put yourself in that little bit of an uncomfortable situation, because that's how we learn at the end of the day, and it's not until you do it that your confidence is going to improve anyway. So it's hard at the beginning, but you've just got to back yourself and practice what you preach when we talk about confidence, I think.
Good message to have. And then
Yeah,
also in psychology, sometimes it is harder to measure the impact that you have. So
yeah,
Yeah.
for
we do
sure.
rely on feedback quite often.
Yeah, I that was something I struggled with at the start as well, and like the confidence of not knowing whether or not you were having a good impact. But now I always have a feedback form at the end of each workshop. It's on a QR code, so I tell them they don't even have to sit there and do it. They just scan it and do it on the go, just at the end. And even when you sort of doubted whether or not that session went well, if you then sit there and read that feedback, 9 times out of 10, it's positive. I haven't had a bad comment yet. Hopefully it stays that way. But it's just so nice to see that actually you did make a difference, and you need to sort of get out your head a little bit and just think that, no, what you can do is right. And here's 15 students who are reinforcing the fact that you are in the right place, you are doing the right thing. So absolutely get feedback from your clients where it's appropriate.
How is it to get feedback from like young athletes? Is it difficult, or are they, yeah, giving you some constructive things?
The youngest I work with at the moment, they are 14, I think.
Mm,
I make like the open-ended ones optional, but I get them
mm,
to rate things. So I think there's 4 different rating questions with different like emojis to help them understand what I'm asking them. So they have to rate certain topics and then they get like open space to add comments or say whatever they feel like. And one of them's like, what do you think Jess could have done better kind of thing. A lot of them type in that box nothing or like, no, really enjoyed the whole thing. So I don't think, I think 14, 15 is quite reasonable age
Mm.
to get them to give feedback in the way that you want. But I wouldn't know from a younger athlete whether or not that approach would have to change. I could imagine it probably would, and you probably might need to stick to sort of more of a visual way of giving feedback or sort of having like a questionnaire or something like that that you can do with the athlete. Yeah. Can't speak from experience on that one so far, but it works for 14-year-olds.
I will take notes on that.
I just use Microsoft Forms. It's really easy. And then I just put a QR code on the final
Mm.
slide. Very efficient.
It's a good way to go actually, because
Mm.
sometimes athletes won't want to write so much about feedback, so getting them to do the ratings can be more effective and you'll get more feedback that way.
Yeah, and the other thing I've learned as well is they all have their phones on them anyway. So I
Yeah.
might as
Yeah.
well make use of them being on their phone.
That's how I do my performance profiling sometimes. Rather than them doing it on pen and paper, they prefer it digitally.
Yeah, I think sometimes it also they feel like they're a bit more anonymous when they do it on their phone because if they've got a pen and paper in front of them, the person next to them can see how they're rating. If I
Yeah.
walk around, so I think they can be a bit more honest when it's something that they have that's almost like security blanket around on the fact that if they didn't want anything to see it, they can lock the screen straight away. So I think for me and my workshops, it's working out quite nicely actually to
Mhm.
digitalize things where possible. I also use Mentimeter, which is
Yeah,
just like
that's
an
a good one.
online software you can do like word clouds, sort of answers to questions and things like that. So I learned quite early on that if you just ask a group of students or athletes a question, they're going to stare at you blankly and
Hmm.
not answer it.
Yeah.
And no matter how many easier questions you ask them. So I now sort of just use Mentimeter and I'm like, this is all anonymous, go for it. And you get so much more engagement when they don't think they're, being known for who gives their response. And it really supports discussion, I think. So find something like Mentimeter, I would say as well.
You can also do quizzes on Mentimeter, so you can get the interaction from that, and it's a competitive nature, which most athletes will thrive in.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've always thought of using like Kahoot as well, but I haven't
They love
fit
the
it into a
music.
workshop yet. Like I can even think of the theme tune right now. So yeah, I'll have to try that in the next workshop.
Yeah, I
Um,
feel like that 100% there's more engagement that way because some people don't like. I know as a student myself, I never used to put my hand up to contribute.
Yeah, neither did I. And I think that's sort of like what helped me realize that, okay, maybe a digital platform is the answer here because I always responded to something like a word cloud. But you get me to put my hand up, especially when we're talking about complex things like, how are you feeling in this situation? What are your thoughts in this situation? Have we ever felt like this? It's quite hard for someone to speak up in front of a group and say, do you know what? Yeah, actually, I do. Whereas if we put it anonymous on a screen, it's so much easier for people to go, actually, yes, that's me. This is how I feel. So it definitely helps the difficult conversations.
Yeah,
So I'm
that's
guessing
good.
you learnt that quite quickly then.
Yeah. By workshop two, I had a Mentimeter.
So one of the final question I have for you is if you have to do the whole process again, how would you do it differently?
Oh, that's a really good
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would do it differently per se. I think I would just back myself more and believe that you can do it because if you suddenly start thinking, oh, this isn't for me, I can't do this, then you kind of shut off from even studying, reading an extra
Mhm.
research article, anything like that. So I think, yeah, I would have gone back and backed myself more, maybe put in an extra hour of studying, something like that, just to boost the confidence, I think. But I don't think, looking back, I don't think
Mhm.
I would have changed anything about my route into sports psychology at the moment. I think everything's been the way it needs to be.
You
So
have to
quite
trust the
positive.
process,
Exactly. I love the phrase
Yeah.
trust the process. Trust
or
the process.
process over outcome, as we tell athletes.
Yeah. Set a good process goal, stick to it.
Yeah.
And there's so many more sport and exercise psychologists coming through. And even if you speak to people that have been in the industry in for like 10, 15, 20 years, they'll tell you like they took a completely different route, but they are where they are. So it is
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah, I don't think I think as long as you can get there, it doesn't matter what route you take. And there's so many universities now with the accredited courses. So I think as long as you have that accredited course, you're going to end up at your overall outcome, even if you have to make changes along the way. So yeah, I like the journey of getting there. I think that's another phrase I like.
And there's a
And
better
some
community feel, I would say, within trainees at the minute.
Yeah, no, the community is amazing at the moment, and I feel like everyone's so open to listening to each other's experiences, and I think everyone feels it very validating for hearing each other's experiences and going, okay, I'm not alone in feeling that. And I think there's a lot of learning from each other as well that, somebody would go, oh, I approached a communication workshop like this, and they go, okay, just writing that down. I'm just going to borrow that if that's okay. And I think it's such a supportive community for sure. It's a nice thing to be a part of, even though you're on the journey by yourself. You're not when you get to interact with the other trainees. It's lovely.
Would you
yeah,
say there's any other key pieces of advice that you would give anyone starting out in the industry?
Trust yourself. I think a big part of me early on was not believing that I had the knowledge or the skills to be able to sit there and spontaneously respond to an athlete based on what they're saying. But you study it for so long that yes, you do know it and it will just sort of come naturally almost. So yeah, trust yourself and just do it. Just say yes within reason, I think.
It's great advice. Thank you.
No worries.
I think that
Have you
is
got any
all
other
for
questions? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Jess, for
No worries.
thank
being
Thank you
you.
part
for
of our
having me.
podcast. Yeah,
Thank you.
no worries.